Many people are raving about this movie, terming it as an anti-war film at a time where cinema is full of hatred and frothing in the mouth against the enemy. But the main question arises, is intent merely enough? Is Ikkis really effective in conveying the same? Let's realistically dive deep. A bittersweet start to the year indeed. While it marks an interesting and praiseworthy start to the year at the movies, it breaks my heart that this is the last time we will be seeing a legend like Dharmendra on the big screen. Ikkis is a movie directed by Sriram Raghavan. I think it is fitting for a creator like Raghavan for the last time to be directing the legend, as he is one of his biggest fans. You can see it in his homage to vintage cinema if you have carefully followed Raghavan's career, and I believe it is the world and its odd way of aligning the stars that Dharmendra last features in this exceptionally well-intended film. The movie focuses on the life of Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, played by Agastya Nanda, a dedicated, talented and young army officer who had dreams to join the armed forces inspired by his father, Madan Lal Khetrapal, played by Dharmendra. The film sheds light on his journey from his time in NDA and the IMA, and specifically his contribution in the Battle of Basantar in the 1971 war in the Shakargarh district, where he showed great valor in taking down enemy tanks, with the famous words etched in history, "No sir, I will not abandon my tank, my gun is still working." Ikkis is not merely a war film showcasing the valor of Arun Khetrapal in the line of battle, but it also focuses on the documented visit of his father to his old college reunion in Lahore, where he was hosted by Brigadier Jan Muhammad Nisar, played by Jaideep Ahlawat, who may have some connection with the 1971 war, putting into context the act of war, its impact in context to countries, the humanity that gets lost in the line of battle, the individual strength and grit of his son, the futility of battle, and the mutual admiration that comes even in the atmosphere of extreme violence. I thought if Sriram Raghavan is directing a biopic, and even more so a war film, it will not just be like any other movie that will be casually forgotten, and my assessment, I think, is spot on. This is something extremely different and quite the cutaway from the one-tone violence, chest-thumping, shouting and yelling we have become desensitized to in cinema. But the question again is it really effective? Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the movie so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Ikkis in theaters or not. Screenplay stumbling block. One of the aspects of films that we have often criticized on this channel is when storytelling is explored in a linear and predictable manner. However, as we already know the outcome of this movie, thus there is little room to be surprised. Even in the arc of Dharmendra and Jaideep Ahlawat, it's not really shocking in any way. One knows from a mile away what is to be conveyed. So keeping all of this in mind, for some reason, Sriram Raghavan is adamant in constantly intercutting between the progression of events during the 1971 war and the 3-day trip of his father in Lahore. This, in my opinion, unnecessarily breaks the flow of storytelling when Arun Khetrapal and his journey in creating an impression as a tank operator is leading to some momentum and interest. It cuts away to either his romance or his father getting accustomed with his batchmates. When Dharmendra is getting emotional about why his son did not retreat and follow orders, it immediately cuts away to the soldier's frustration in a war and having yet not engaged in battle. In an emotional scene where Dharmendra embraces an injured Pakistani soldier played by Deepak Dobriyal, conveying how each of them have lost a part of themselves in battle, the scene immediately cuts away to another chapter from the 1971 war. The point being that the emotions are not allowed to sit. They are not allowed to be processed. The moment we are getting invested emotionally or from a line of battle POV, the narrative snatches you away to focus on the other timeline. This is one of the few times I wish the screenplay was more linear in its structure rather than doing the random cutaways between timelines. The only time there is a beautiful integration of both the timelines is when the face-off between the tanks is showcased in the climax, when the tension remains, where one is allowed to experience the intensity of battle rather than cutting away consistently to lighter moments in Arun Khetrapal's personal life. Exceptional attention to detail and the intricacies of war. Due to the consistent cutaways between timelines, the film never allows you to dive deep on what he does beautifully. transport you to a different era. If you see the film visually, the legend cinematographer Anil Mehta has done such a spectacular job that I was mesmerized when the film focused on the formative years of Arun Khetrapal in NDA, how he represented and led the Foxtrot squadron and engaged in the inter-squadron competition to achieve the best of course, but also impress his romantic interest. The meet cute and grace with which the romance is showcased in the film, especially what I consider to be a Sriram Raghavan staple, his love for Pune and his integration of art and culture of the time, the movies that were seen, the bond between Arun Khetrapal and Kiran Kochar is representative of a love that seems to be lost today, of subtlety, grace, abandonment, and oozing of class. Again, it just did not help that these moments are fleeting, both the intense moments of the line of battle and even the precious and tender moments of romance. However, I think it's important to mention what I really appreciate about the movie and its respect not only given to Arun Khetrapal's fellow tank operators, but the direct fire armored vehicles and the care that needs to be given to the engineering machine marvels. The training montage of the soldiers treating their tanks like their own children, the sequence of crossing the Basanta river at night full of mines, and the ultimate battle in the climax are some of the most brilliant battle sequences I've seen in a Hindi film, an extension of what was so skillfully done in an underrated film like 120 Bahadur. The problem is that these intricacies of war, these nail-biting moments should have been more indulgent. The screenplay cutaways act like a huge deterrent for the audience to be fully invested into the film. Kaun Sa Dushman does not sit right with me. The film will not sit right with many people, and it did not entirely sit right with me also, and I'll tell you why. Dharmendra has lost his son in the movie and still grieves this aspect in the film. The film sheds light on the futility of war, the pointlessness of it, how these acts of war on both sides just create casualties and nothing more, and how this cyclical nature will continue for years to come. But while I appreciate the fact that unlike most India versus Pakistan conflict movies, the movie aims to provide nuance in providing humanity to the Pakistani people, everyone is not represented with coal-covered eyes, saying Janab all the time, frothing in the mouth for India's destruction, or being absolute buffoons in the line of battle. I agree with all of that. However, it just did not sit right with me that the movie also aims to absolve the Pakistani forces of all responsibility in this chapter of history, specifically the 1971 war. When Jaideep references the word Dushman, Dharmendra is taken aback by the use of the word. I understand that the film aims for peace, for pacifism, it wants to hit home the futility of war and be the answer against these chest thumping and violent stance that movies usually take, but it also in the process almost nullifies the abhorrent human rights violations that were conducted by the Pakistani forces in East Pakistan that essentially led to the 1971 war. This point hits home when soldiers are interviewed by journalists about how they feel about their success in the war, while the soldiers are still processing the death of their fellow soldiers, how it's ruthless, heartbreaking, and how one has to bravely move on with such sudden casualties. However, its idealistic approach of wanting aman between two nations almost seemed naive to me. The documented visit of Arun Khetrapal's father to Lahore and his conversation with the brigadier praising his son in the line of battle is documented, yes. And this act itself may represent this ideal peaceful ties picture that we all want with our neighboring nation. But I think it works in an unrealistic, idealistic vacuum that may have its intentions in the right place, but it comes across as way too preachy. The ensemble cast. I cannot fault the movie and its supporting cast. Jaideep Ahlawat has an exceptional screen presence in this movie, sharing most of his running time with Dharmendra by his side. There is a reverence and respect in his body language, and it oozes in every scene. You can almost feel like how exceptionally lucky Jaideep may be feeling in sharing screen space with Dharmendra in his last feature film. In the brief appearances, the supporting cast of fellow soldiers have an exceptional command on their dialogues, and I was extremely impressed by the level of detailing and how they conducted themselves while being mindful of the hierarchy in the force. This includes brilliant performances by Rahul Dev, Vivan Shah, and especially Sikandar Khair, who makes Arun Khetrapal learn the ropes of the tank before the war. Dharmendra truly has such a warm presence on screen. My mother used to tell me that he was one of the most beautiful men she has seen in commercial Hindi cinema, possessing a charm that was undeniable undeniable, and you realize this with his presence in this film too. Why he was so loved for so many years. His eyes as they well up reminiscing about the memories of his son are beautiful, and it truly was an honor to see him one last time on screen. This movie also includes a legend like Asrani sharing screen space with Dharmendra, and it does make you reflect on their contribution to Hindi cinema all these years. My only hesitation with the film was to see if Agastya Nanda can pull off such an iconic role, and I must say that while he fits the part visually and from an age perspective, I did feel like he was extremely raw and slightly inconsistent in this movie. While he in the line of battle stood out for me as he led his tank bravely, not wanting to retreat like his superiors wanted him to, his moments of charm with the romantic interest and the fleeting moments of camaraderie with his squadron batchmates is where I felt like he was slightly inconsistent, extremely raw and still getting accustomed to the cadence and expressions that were required for such a big role. He looked like a young Abhishek Bachchan with curls who gets the privilege of featuring in such a commercial project, and it doesn't really come together to be the home run I believe the makers were intending. Ikkis is a movie that may be celebrated by a section of the audience for its intent, but I think it's not enough for me to sit here and tell you that it's one of the best war films made in Hindi cinema, because just because it is contrary to the chest-thumping nationalism movies we are used to should not be enough for me to rave about it holistically. It lacks in form because of its consistent nature of jumping timelines, and I believe its battlefield sequences were exceptional but only were explored fleetingly. I can get behind the intent of the film wanting for an ideal peace-loving environment, and I seek for that better tomorrow in reality. But I believe the film could have been far more effective from a storytelling and screenplay POV, the silver lining honestly being the core, the tenderness of Dharmendra ji, who we will be seeing for the last time on the big screen. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Ikkis. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.